one of, if not the main way that gets in the way of people having a successful dopamine detox and changing their habits is dealing with stress, managing cravings. So often people start out with a goal, they work really hard, they're able to get sober time, if you will, away from their old habit, and they're making a lot of progress. And then they have a rough day. They have an argument with their significant other, bad day at work, they're just feeling guilty for some reason, and that stress leads them to turn back to their old habits. I mean, it happens to all of us. It's happened to me many times, right? We feel comfortable in our old ways. It helps us to feel better in the moment. But of course, this hurts us in the long run. It hurts us from being able to reset our brain so that we don't crave those things anymore, so that we can have more motivation to do other things. And so in this video, I want to talk about 3 main ways that we can deal with stress when it comes, because it's going to come to all of us. And we need to have a plan in place to be able to deal with that stress so that we don't relapse, so we can have a successful, really dopamine fast. And so the first and most important way that we can deal with the stress is having what I call a reactive mindfulness plan. So you may have heard of mindfulness as typical activities that you schedule into your day. What I'm talking about here is more about activities that you will do when you're stressed, when you're feeling that craving to engage in your old habit. And so this plan, you can write it down, and some typical elements that it includes are something to do with your body, a certain perspective or affirmation to repeat, something to do instead, a replacement or a distraction. And so starting with something to do with your body, this can quickly get your mind off the thing by doing something like going for a walk, doing some stretching, doing some quick exercise where you are right now. Even some high intensity exercise can be really good to get some of that stress out immediately. And you can do it wherever you are, doing some quick push-ups, squats, whatever. And then secondly, and having a perspective or an affirmation that you can tell yourself in that moment, something that helps you to reframe that stress. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later with mindset. This could be something you've written down that you look at. For example, I've talked about having a vision and an anti-vision. So if you can look at that when you are feeling stressed and say, okay, I'm just gonna take a second to look at my vision, do this plan. And you don't have to say, okay, I'm not gonna deal with this stress, but okay, first I'm just gonna follow these steps. And you'll find after you do these things that your stress is usually reduced if you give yourself a little bit of time to think. And so thirdly, something to distract yourself with, something to replace. And so this could be a wide range of activities, but there's so many things that we can do to deal with stress in a healthier way that's not going to mess with our motivation to do other things. And so these could range from taking a warm shower or a warm bath, to reaching out to a friend to talk to spending some time watching your favorite movie. There's so many things to think about that you can look into or try that can help you deal with stress, that won't lead to you using your old addictive habit. Now, the second part of dealing with stress that I want to talk about is having to do with the mind-body connection. And so there's a strong connection between the health of your physical body and the stress you experience in day-to-day life. So there's really three main areas when it comes to this. It's sleep, exercise, and nutrition. And so if we don't get enough sleep or the good quality sleep, then we're going to experience a wider range of emotions the next day. We're going to experience stress at a higher level, which obviously is going to make it harder to resist temptations to use our old habits. And so really number one simply is to make sure you're getting good quality sleep each night. Number two, with exercise, I mentioned before how this can help to deal with stress. And to explain really why this works, we evolved dealing with stress by moving our bodies physically. When we were in danger for our lives, whether it be running away from an animal, running to find food for ourselves or our families, or quickly trying to build something, all of these things that caused the stress, the solution was to move our bodies. And so that movement signaled, okay, we're working to solve this, and if we're exerting ourselves, then our body knows we're dealing with that problem. And so we still have that inside of us today. So if we physically exert ourselves through strength training, cardio, whatever, it's gonna deal with that stress so we're not experiencing that throughout the day. And number three, nutrition. And so this can be a bad habit in itself if we're consuming things with a lot of addictive processed ingredients like added sugars or flours. These can have us turning to these things when we're stressed, and it's going to spike our dopamine. It's going to make us crave the other habits we're trying to quit. Whereas if we can stick to whole foods as much as possible, then it's going to help us to maintain a stable baseline level of dopamine, as well as keep our mood stabilized if we're getting the proper nutrients. So that's the mind-body connection when dealing with stress. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is our mindset when it comes to stress. Because, when we're stressed, we can think a lot about our habits. It can consume us. We can think, I need this to feel better right now. But if we have the right mindset, we can resist and we can keep on going, successfully detoxing from our old habits. And that mindset I want to focus on is believing that getting through this moment brings us one step closer to our goal. And it's literally changing your brain when you resist, when you feel that pain, that stress. The more you endure that, the more you're changing your brain, and the more motivation you're going to have later to engage in those activities that you want to, those activities that are going to improve your life, whether it be exercise, studying, working. The more you can resist and train your brain to not engage in those habits when you're stressed, the more dopamine your brain is going to get from less stimulating activities. And so this is a skill that we learn over time, and you could call it having a growth mindset. And the more you remind yourself of this, the more you can sit in those stressful moments, that it are going to come to all of us. And be okay and recognize you're safe. This is part of the process. You're improving yourself every second that you sit there and don't give in to those temptations. And this is not easy, but as you refine these skills over time, as you try implementing different parts of your reactive mindfulness plan, just keep iterating, keep going. Eventually you're going to find something that works for you to deal with that stress. And once you have that, you're going to be able to have a successful dopamine detox. And once you get through that 30 days, which is just kind of the average, then those cravings, those temptations to engage in your old habits will go down, and it'll be even easier. And so those are the 3 things I just wanted to highlight when dealing with stress. Having a reactive mindfulness plan when you're stressed, focusing on your physical health with sleep, exercise, and nutrition, and having a mindset that this stressful moment, if you can endure it, is going to help you reach your goals. And so I hope that helps you to deal with stress when it comes, so that you can overcome and change your habits. And if you're wanting more in depth about these things, check out the guide in my description and subscribe for more videos like this.